On this edition of Gameball NFL Endzone, we're going to talk about the 2018 NFL Draft, starting first with the AFC Conference. We're going to break down every team's draft picks, and we'll give you our grades on how we think they did. Only here, Gameball NFL Endzone, and it starts right now.
Here we go. And whoa! And guess who's back?
What's
happening, everyone?
Welcome to Gameball NFL Endzone, where the NFL season never ends. I'm Marcus Young Genius Jenkins.
I'm Michael Riley.
And I'm your boy Luke Cartney.
And as always, we're coming at you live from Stonewall Pizzeria, right here, 1008 Mass Street, here in Lawrence, Kansas. And of course, I want to thank my bros for holding me down last week. If you guys did not check that out, the NFL mock draft that we did last week. Thank you for everybody for the support and the well wishes as well. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the AFC Conference edition of the 2018 NFL Draft. We're going to start with the Buffalo Bills. Luke, I want to kick this off with you. Now, with their selections in the NFL Draft, you gave them a C. Why don't you go ahead and break down why you gave them that grade?
I mean, they got A.J. McCarron in that trade for the Bengals. They still moved up to get Josh Allen. I don't know what they're... I mean, it's a C for the time being. Josh Allen can either bump that up or down with his play. You know, Josh Rosen of UCLA was still on the board. I would have rather seen him draft him instead. I think Rosen's more NFL ready, but maybe they don't want an NFL ready quarterback when they got McCarron, ready to start week one for him. So I love the Tremaine Edmonds. You talk about Christmas come early for him. That was I mean, he was like, in my opinion, the premier linebacker this year's draft class. For him to slide down to him is just great. Got Harrison Phillips, a defensive tackle at Stanford. Every team needs that depth up front. Teron Johnson, small school guy at Weber State, made it a cornerback. You got some. I also like that Ray McLeod out of Clemson with the sixth round there. I think he can be the. He's got Marquez Colston, that late round potential in him, and of course, Austin Proehl, I believe the son of the former receiver Ricky Proehl, who played for the Panthers and ran amongst other teams out of Carolina. There, I can't really give him any more than a C because to the exception of Tremaine Edmonds, I don't know if any of these guys are gonna really be week one impact guys. I think it's almost a given that Allen's gonna sit for a year or so. I can't knock him for adding depth, but there's not a lot of starters in this group, but they did add depth.
Mike, now you gave them kind of a similar grade. You gave them a C minus. So why'd you give them a C minus?
Well, I agree with the same thing with Luke, and I take it a little bit further. Other than the Tremaine Edmonds early gets me his crib draft pick, the quarterback Josh Allen, he's like, you have to send him out for a year. I'd rather for you to draft Rosen because Rosen was still there on the board before he got drafted. Instead, you take Josh Allen. It was kind of a little head scratcher. He needs some time. I mean, he has an arm for talent, no doubt about that. But sometimes he could be inconsistent throwing the ball, especially short intermediate routes. Like, he makes easy throws look hard. He makes hard throws look easy. Also, I look at the Phillips pick, the defensive lineman for Stanford. He can ball, he can play good and all that, but the question sometimes when he's double teamed, he can't get off of double team blocks here and there. So he have to learn from the veterans how to get off of those. Then you got a cornerback from Jacksonville State. You got a wide receiver and from Clemson and North Carolina. In my opinion, I thought you should went for the wide receiver in the second round because there were still pretty good wide receivers in the draft class that was still on the board, but that kept going early. Christian Kirk went off the board. Then you had Cortland Sutton out of SMU. He was there before he went off the board. So I would have traded up and grabbed one of those targets. But other than that, I had to give him a C- because they ain't really addressed a skilled set of receivers. Because Buffalo, they need receivers on the offense that can stretch the field, get some yards, and score touchdowns. So that was their miss there. So I had to give them a C- for that.
Now, I want to ask you both really quickly. You think that maybe they're not building for right now? Do you think this is more of kind of stacking up for the future, or maybe stacking to maybe make moves maybe later on in the season to try to acquire something else? Or what do you think this was that the Bills were thinking?
I think it's an attempt to fill up the 53-man roster. Like I said, they outside of Tremaine Edmonds, I don't see any immediate starters there. But that doesn't mean they can't make the 53-man roster. They had great depth for them.
Well, I think they're building for the future a little bit. But at the same time, you made the playoffs last year. You got to have that mentality like, we're in to win now. This has to be the win now mentality mode because we made the playoffs last year. So we got to be better in that instead of getting a quarterback and not having any tools for him, if you know what I mean.
They shifted out of win now mentality when they traded Tyrod Taylor, in my opinion. And with that said, I mean, you could have talked me into Lamar Jackson with that quarterback pick in the first round as well. They could have got him without trading up.
Exactly.
So maybe this is an attempt maybe at a rebuilding process in Buffalo. It's going to be yet to be seen. It's going to be interesting. Once again, Mike a C- and Luke giving them a C. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. Mike, I want to give this to you. This is interesting because you both gave them absolutely different grades. Mike, you gave the Miami Dolphins an A for their draft picks. Break it down for a while.
Well, he gave him.
Actually, I apologize. Let me rephrase that. Luke gave them an A. Actually, Mike, you actually gave them a C+. Actually, I would like for you to break down to everyone, why did you give them a C+?
Well, I feel like they could address the quarterback situation in this draft. I mean, you can't place on a player and safety, Mika Fitzpatrick from Alabama. He's a good defensive player and all that. He'll help your defense out. But in the second round, you could have had a quarterback because we all know how injury-prone Tannehill has been. He only had one or two couple good seasons, and rest of it he's been injured or he's been inconsistent. So I look at that and I'm like, you didn't come away with at least a solid, decent quarterback in this draft. Kyle Leonard from Richmond was still there. Mason Rudolph, who was picked in the third round, was still on the board. I felt like you could have solidified that position by picking him because he has an arm talent. He's very accurate with the ball, and he's underrated on his deep ball. I felt like you could have went with that. Then focus on getting the receivers and tight ends and all that stuff. Then they went with the quarterback outside of Mississippi, and you had a running back coming out of Arizona State. You got a linebacker and a kicker. So that's my perspective. They get a C+ because they didn't really address the quarterback situation. They all in on Tannehill, but can he stay healthy? I don't know. So in my opinion, I would have drafted a quarterback to be on the safe side. That way, if he gets injured, you wouldn't worry about having a backup because Jay Cutler might retire, and we all know he's accustomed to having a suspect season. So that's my take on it.
Word on the street is Cutler is going to retire this year. So, I mean, you make a lot of fair points there. But, I mean, I give him an A because, I mean, look at these picks that they got there. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick is probably, in my opinion, the top overall, at least defensive back in this year's draft. Safety, corner, rover, doesn't matter. I mean, they got just an absolute player with them. Like the tight end of the Penn State, Mike Gesicki, Jerome Baker gives him depth at the linebacker position. What I want to go move down to the 4th round. They got Kalen Ballage. They got the running back Kenyon Drake there, who was started at Alabama a couple years ago. Had that kick return against Clemson in the championship game that they defeated Clemson in. And I think what Ballage is going to be able to do there, other than provide depth for him, is they can go back to when they had Rana, the running back from Auburn. Ran the Wildcat.
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie Harmon.
Yeah.
They can go into that Wildcat offense. And by not taking the quarterback, this is what I like about that. There's no question whose team that is. There's no controversy. There's no. If the Miami Dolphins are a Ferrari, Tannehill's got the keys to that Ferrari. Here's the keys to the car. What's he gonna do with it? He gonna make a splash? He gonna wreck it? We don't know. But I mean. You could have taught me into a quarterback in the later rounds there, but I mean I just look at these the overall draft picks there. I mean they was able to get just a lot of depth, a lot of needs there, and like I said, these still are the defensive side of the draft.
So kind of a toss-up. You were a little bit more harsher as far as the draft picks. Luke's, once again, gives him an A. Mike gives him a C+. Interesting draft pick. This is definitely one to see. Once again, is Mr. Tannehill. If he turns this team into a winner, it's going to be yet to be seen. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the New England Patriots and their draft picks. We're going to start with Luke. Luke, you gave them a B on their draft picks. Why did you give them a B?
I mean, you could talk me into an A on this, actually. They got a versatile lineman in Isaiah Wynn. He played both the tackle and the line position out of the University of Georgia. Got his Georgia teammate, Sony Michel, who I thought this was going to go Darius Geis. I actually had Geis going, I think, in the top 15 of this draft. I guess he has some character issues that I was unaware of while he dropped I believe, 59 overall. But, I mean, Sony Michel's going to be able to come in there. He can be that James White type back, that Stephen Ridley type back for him. And then it's just, you look at their later round picks, and it's just like, I mean, you pretty much are putting them into I just trust Belichick. Like, I mean, I give him a B up of him alone right there. But I really like those first 2 of the 3 picks they got there. Christian Samka is a linebacker to come and play right away for him. They don't draft a lot of Pac-12 players, so I'm kind of, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So it's interesting how that's going to turn out. And got Danny Etling, the quarterback out of LSU, to be call him Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0, I guess. So. But I mean, the way he was able to, we saw how successful Garoppolo was able to do for him. The other quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, came in there, performed a little bit for him as well. Going back a few years, Matt Castle played really well for him when he had his opportunity. And Tom Brady is, everyone knows about how he's turned out there. So just you got to trust the pick right there. And it all comes down to Belichick. He gives him a B just off the principle.
Mike, you gave the New England Patriots an A-.
Well, it's Belichick being Belichick. Identify what he needs and how valued these draft picks are. Well, I look at it from the Isaiah Wynn, offensive tackle / offensive lineman. He's more likely going to kick in that guard spot because of his height. But during his time at the offensive tackle spot when he's in Georgia, he went up against some of the best pass rusher, and he actually held his own and held it down for him. So that's a good pickup by Belichick. Also, you have one of the best offensive line coaches, Scarnecula, who can teach him and who can be a technician with him his blocking schemes if they decide to go that tackle route or that guard. And Sony Michel, that is one explosive player. I mean, he can catch the ball well. He can run in between the tackles, and he is a violent runner. That's something the Patriots had last season, was a violent runner. Even though he's light in weight, about 210, but he's still a violent runner. He's north and south, and the passing game, he's east and west. Make one dude miss and just take it to the house. He's also a very good pass blocker as well. You can line a receiver. You can get him routes out of the flat in the backfield. And also this replaces Deion Lewis, who they lost to, and the Tennessee Titans in their free agency march. And also you look at the cornerback at Duke Dawson. I mean, from Florida, this kid can ball. The only issue is his height, but he kind of reminds me of Malcolm Butler. He's a little scrappy. He makes tackle well in open space, and he also can take a pick six to the house, and he's a little faster than Malcolm Butler. That's what he values, and they had him a visit before the draft. And the draft pick that stood out for me is Jawan Bentley, linebacker out of Purdue. When they say he is a thumper, I watch his highlights. This dude is a thumper. He'll punch in the mouth. He's that old school Michael Singletary and Dick Buckets linebacker. Some of the Patriots haven't had in a long time. And you also had Christian Sham, another linebacker who could also play good in some packages as well. Also a special teams. Then you got Braxton Berry is the wide receiver from Miami, who more likely would replace Danny Amendola, who went to the Dolphins. Then you got the quarterback in the 7th round out of LSU. Nobody has never heard about him because they ran the ball a lot. But I guarantee you, give him like 2 or 3 years, he could be something good for the Patriots. You got a cornerback who likely plays special teams. You got tight end Ryan Izzo out of Florida State, who's a good pass blocker, but he's underrated in his route running. But the knock on him is getting separation. But I think like he's under Gronk's wing, and he can work with him. He gets separation. He can be a good player. Bring back the double tight end set once the Patriots had once ago.
I think Jawan Bentley, he kind of reminds you, mainly because of the Purdue ties there in the linebacker position, kind of reminds you of Roosevelt Colvin. I remember him. He played for the Patriots for a little bit. You mentioned Berrios. I forgot to mention him on my take there. I think he's more Brandon Cooks than Amendola myself.
The Patriots, I mean, I second what you said. I mean, you as well. I would never question anything that Bill Belichick does. His resume speaks for itself. So, I mean, what he does with these young men, I mean, I can't wait to see what he brings out of each and one of these players. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's trying to build for championships in the future. We know that these guys can play forever. We can only tell how long Tom Brady's going to play. But, once again, I trust in Belichick as well. Moving on for the New England Patriots, we're going to go to the East Coast still. We're going to stay in the East Coast. We're going to talk about the New York Jets and their draft picks. Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one. You gave the draft picks a B.
The quarterback, Sam Darnold, they had to have him. So that was a good pick, and he's a more pro-style rated quarterback than some of these other quarterbacks to draft. The only knock on Sam Darnold is he had 22 interceptions. That is a lot when he played last season, but he get learn from McCown and Teddy Bridgewater for a year to develop and get some of those turnovers down. But he is a gunslinger, and he's not afraid to let it loose. So I like that pick. And my favorite pick is the Nate Shepard, Fort Hays State defensive tackle. I mean, this kid is special. He knows how to use his hands well. When I watched film on him, he got a lot off of double teams, was making plays and stopping the run and sacking the quarterback. And the cornerback and the defensive tackle, how you not like those? And the tight end, Charles Henry from Miami. So it could have been better, but I just gave him a B.
Luke, you gave them a little bit of a higher grade. You gave the New York Jets an A for the draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to give. I respect your pick of a B, but they only made 6 picks in the entire draft there, and they nailed every single one of them. I mean, right down to the running back Trenton Cannon of Virginia State. Never heard of him or Virginia State, but I trust him to come in and compete for a position there right quick because the running back was a need for theirs. With the lack of draft picks, they couldn't really get like a quote unquote secondary back in the the mid rounds like some of the other teams did. But Sam Darnold, I actually think that I stand by Josh Rosen being the most NFL ready quarterback going into Week 1. But I think given where the quarterback, knowing what we know now, I think Darnold's going to be other than possibly Baker Mayfield at Cleveland. I think Darnold might be the most likely to start. Side note: Jets and Browns play Week 3, so good luck guessing the quarterback matchup that game on a Thursday night, no less. Mike covered the man Nathan Shepard. I was fortunate to see him play a few times last year. Went to Fort Hays State, my hometown. But I mean. My personal bias aside, I mean the guy is he's actually from Canada. Went to a Division II Canadian school after his freshman year. He had to quit playing football because of finances or whatever else. Division II, the scholarships aren't quite the same. Makes his ways to Hayes. Still is a linebacker. He's put on almost 100 pounds. Went from 205 to 315 actually, which is just insane. But just cat-like quickness, and I mean, you really have to see the guy play to fully appreciate him. I like the tight end pick out of Miami there. One thing that Mark Richt teams going back to his Georgia days, they always knew how to they knew how to get that tight end involved in the game there. I don't expect that to change at the next level there. And I would have liked to see them have more than 6 picks, but given what they had so little to work with, they could have done a better job, I don't think.
Well, the reason why I gave it a B because of the coaching staff. Can't the coaching staff get these players ready to be successful, to get wins and possibly the playoffs? Because you still got the Patriots, the big dog of the AFC East, and they're looking down. So that's my only issue with it, and that's why I gave it a B.
But you and many other experts had Sam Darnold going #1 overall for the Browns. So I mean, they theoretically got, if not the best player in the draft, then at least the best quarterback in the draft in many people's eyes. #1. #2, there were some experts. I think Shepard fell to number 72 in the 3rd round. I saw him as high as the number 43 overall draft prospect. So for him to drop almost 30 spots, that really was another Christmas come early for a team there.
Jets, both you guys gave them high grades. That actually concludes the AFC East division of the 2018 NFL Draft, breaking down the AFC Conference. That moves us ahead to the AFC North, and first we're going to discuss the Baltimore Ravens, who were actually quite busy, as they had quite a few draft picks this year's draft. Luke, I want to start with you. You gave the Baltimore Ravens a B.
Yeah, I don't. We just covered out the Jets only had 6 picks. I mean, let's look at the Ravens. They had 6 picks by the 4th round. They were able to add plenty of depth there. I don't necessarily think they had to trade up into the 1st round to get Lamar Jackson. I think he still would have been there. So now they got Joe Flacco, Robert Griffin III, and Lamar Jackson all in for the quarterback position there. It's going to be a very interesting training camp there in preseason because I'm not sure that all 3 are going to be on the roster. I mean, Flacco, and I assume Robert Griffin is the one I'm really kind of worried about because they traded up for Lamar Jackson. He's not going anywhere. Joe Flacco, it's still firmly his team. He's still a Super Bowl champion. He's not going anywhere. I like the Hayden Hurst. He was the hands down. Not necessarily the best catching tight end or the best blocking tight end, but he's the best, prototype of the 2 there. Really like the Orlando Brown pick in the 3rd round of the offensive tackle. Kenny Young, he's a running back a linebacker at UCLA. He's going to give them a lot of depth there, and they took some shots, here in the later rounds. So we'll see how they pan out. But then 5th and 6th rounders are just kind of hoping to make the team anyway. But you look at those 2 firsts, 2 thirds, 2 fours. I would have given them an A if they could have not traded up for Lamar Jackson.
Well, I gave them an A, and here's why. Because they need to address the tight end. That was one of their weaknesses on their offense. And Hayden Hurst was the top-rated tight end in the draft, so they went and took care of business of there. And when they traded back in for Lamar Jackson, they felt like somebody was going to take him in the 2nd round early. Because 2nd round, the good players was going back quick like clockwork. So they felt like they had to trade up and get Lamar Jackson, who's going to be behind Joe Flacco for a year or 2. Now, the offensive coordinator, who also worked with Colin Kaepernick when he was with the 49ers, as well as Michael Vick in the Philadelphia and Atlanta Falcons days. So that's good for Lamar Jackson when they brought him for the visit before the draft. So they got to know him a little bit better and see what he's like. And you have to dedicate your playbook to him, like what he likes and what he doesn't like, and work on his weaknesses so he get better at it, so he get a little bit more better at his accuracy when he throws the ball in the passing game. And Orlando Brown is the son of Brown. His father played for the Ravens as well back in the good old days, when Ray Lewis and the Shannon Sharps was there in that Super Bowl run. And I also like tight end Mark Andrews out of Oklahoma. The only knock on Andrews is his blocking. If he can get his blocking down well enough, he could be a dangerous tight end. So it'd be a copycat league, double tight end set from the Patriots offense back in the good old days. You also have the linebacker at UCLA, and they also dress other needs as well. This is Ozzie Newman's final year and as a general manager for the Baltimore Ravens, so he went all out, and he loves him some Alabama players. So he got 2 or 3 Alabama players here and there in the draft. Overall, for Ozzie Newsome, I gave him an A because it's his final year being a GM and he wants to go out with a bang.
Does it seem like the Ravens have been out of the playoffs 3 consecutive years?
Yeah.
I caught that stat the other day. I was completely blown. I knew they missed this past year, but I was completely unaware they missed 3 years in a row. That blew my mind.
Well, it definitely seems like the Baltimore Ravens, and that could be given the fact that they put in a lot of work during this offseason. 2018 NFL draft, that front office was absolutely busy.
I feel like their roster is always playoff good, though. They're always one of the top 6 teams in the AFC. I mean, this thing doesn't shake out that way, but maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Speaking of being very busy, we're going to go to Cincinnati and discuss the Bengals, who also had quite a few draft picks. Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one. You gave them a B+.
Well, because they had to address needs at the position in the draft, starting with Billy Price, offensive line. He's very versatile. He can play guard, he can play center, and he's a very nasty, vicious blocker. So he can block well in the running game and block well in the passing game. And you got the safety from Wake Forest. He's the best overall free safety. I'm like, this dude has vision like Ed Reed, who sees the field, who can make plays between the and the tackles. But when the passing down on third down, he's like a freelancer, goes up and makes plays in the ball and makes interceptions, either for a touchdown or a big game for the offense to come back on the field to score points. I also look at the linebacker Malik Jefferson out of Texas. I mean, this kid is special. He is a beast. He can run in between the tackles. He is a thumper, an old school thumper. He can tackle well in space, and the passing game, he can cover better with the best of them. So if we can put some more weight on him, that'd be good. Get a little bit bigger and faster. And my favorite part of this draft, they drafted a first-round talent out of Sam Hubbard, Ohio State, because he sat under Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa when they were playing as well, along that Ohio State defensive line. I mean, he is underrated how to use his hands to get off blocks. I mean, he's smooth. He gets to the quarterback well, and he sits home for like a little pitch option, whatever, and little jet sweeps. And they got a steal there. And they got another defensive end out of Virginia in the 5th round, who's also very good, does the same qualities as well. So if they get their players going, it'll be good for them. But the only knock on it is I would have given them an A if they would address the linebacker spot, since Vontaze Burfict is suspended for the first 4 games due to PED issues. But other than that, they get a B+. If they would have drafted a linebacker, like Rashad Evans out of Alabama, they would have got an A-.
Well, they got Malik Jefferson in the 3rd round out of Texas. He's a 2nd-round talent. He's certainly worthy of an NFL roster. So you look at what the Bengals here is, without naming the players or the round of the draft or even the school they went to, it is what's unorthodox about it? You look at their picks here: offensive line, safety, defensive end, linebacker. Okay, we're throwing a running back, corner, defensive end, corner, and we get to the 7th round picture. They kind of give and take right there. I really like what the Bengals did here because they didn't draft any skill position guys. And you think about how do you win? How do you really win? You win up front. You win with defense. You want to win the offensive line, the defensive line. Like I said, they got the kid Jefferson, a linebacker, the Texas in the 3rd round there. They got a good front 4 guy, Sam Hubbard out of Ohio State, also in the 3rd round. A lot of good bargain picks there. And I just like how they are very set at this. I mean, you got the quarterback there, red-headed kid Andy Dalton. You got A.J. Green. They got a nice little mix and match of running backs there, led by Gio Bernard amongst others. And I really like how they went. I like their outside. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, if I was quote unquote running a team, being a GM, I would look at that offensive line and defensive side of the ball, because especially with the skill positions as set as they are there already.
Cincinnati Bengals, Mike and Luke both giving them a B. Luke giving them a B+, but still a high grade for the Cincinnati Bengals, who are also very busy as well in the NFL draft. We're going to go from Cincinnati, we're going to go to Cleveland and discuss the Browns. Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one. You gave them a D-.
I didn't like it. When they first yelled Baker Mayfield, I was like, what are you thinking? Nothing against Baker Mayfield. He is a winning Heisman quarterback in his college career, and he has the talent. The reason why I gave him a D minus is I was gonna give him an F, but I gave him a D because of the fit. You have to have a system fit for the quarterback. Like Darnold. Darnold is a pro-style ready quarterback. Same with Rosen, who's also accurate and he's pro-ready. But Baker Mayfield comes out of the Big 12 spread offense. You're not in the center as much. So sometimes Big 12 offensive quarterbacks, when they translate to NFL, don't succeed 9 times out of 10. Matter of fact, I make it 8 times out of 10. They do not succeed in the NFL pro-style offense like the Pac-12 and the other conferences who run more traditional pro-style offense have more success in the NFL than the Big 12 spread offensive quarterbacks. And Denzel Ward, I mean, you could have had Minka Fitzpatrick. He was there at number 4, the safety Alabama. And Bradley Chubb was still on the board. You could have drafted him. So what it made a D minus, they addressed the other needs, the offensive line. The running back, Nick Chubb, was saved them from getting an F because he is a big boy running back thumper like Herschel Walker in the 80s in the good old days. So other than that, I just had to get Cleveland a D minus because of those 2 picks in the first round. I mean, you could have went elsewhere with them, and I'm not a big fan of it. Just saying.
Luke, you actually gave them a higher grade. You gave them a B. Why'd you give them a B instead of?
I mean, basically, I mean, well, Mike's having a problem with basically the names of the players that they drafted. I'm looking at the position. You go down the list, you see what they had to fill out there. They did address a lot. Now, I mean, time will tell how will these players. Personally, I wouldn't have taken Mayfield number 1. I think he still would have been there with the 4th overall pick. I don't think the Giants would have taken him. I don't think the Jets would have taken him. So, I mean, my mock draft, I had him going Bradley Chubb and Minka Fitzpatrick. The reason why is because when you only won 1 game out of your last 32, I think instead of trying to improve the offense and defensive side of the balls at the same time, you should just go all in on one side of the ball. Try to, make as close to a model of an 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens defense as possible. But, and I mean, back to why I gave him a B, though. I don't think you can run. I mean, Sam Darnold and Tyrod Taylor aren't. It's hard to run the same offense with them 2 guys. Should Taylor get hurt? What having Mayfield in there does is they don't have to change the offense. It'd be like they're both dual threats. Is what I'm trying to say there. So I mean, Denzel Ward, he was the top cornerback in the draft there. So I mean, I had him going number 7. So I mean, he went 4th overall. A little bit of a reach. I mean, especially with Bradley Chubb and Fitzpatrick both on the board there. You can talk me to Tremaine Edmonds at the number 4 pick too as well. But Denzel Ward, he was the top corner in the draft this year. And we'll see how his game translates to the pros there. But I mean, their second round is actually where I think gave me a big bump there too, because they got an offensive lineman and they got a really good running back in Nick Chubb. I don't think Saquon Barkley's all hype, but what if he is? You take him with the first pick overall and he doesn't pan out. Nick Chubb doesn't pan out, and I think he will. I think they both will. But if he doesn't, you're out of a second round pick, not a number 1 overall. So that's a little bit of an easier pill to swallow there. And then you move down to the 4th round there. I think Antonio Callaway had a few off the field issues at Florida there. But I mean, when he had his chance to produce, I mean, he's a first round talent. He is a first round talent. Again, had a few problems at Florida there that I think can get rectified in the pros. I don't know how I feel about him being teammates with Josh Gordon, because his problems at Florida mirrors that of what Josh Gordon's been going through as a pro at the Browns there. So that could be an interesting locker room. But I mean, they could have done better. But I'm just saying, let's wait and see. Let's give it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Let's see how these picks pan out. Even if Mayfield doesn't pan out, let's say Denzel Ward's a Pro Bowl cornerback. Let's say Austin Corbett's the second coming of Joe Thomas. Let's say Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb. They can still they give themselves a safety net with them picks.
If you saw the Cleveland Browns reaction when they picked Sam Darnold, some was happy, most of them was like this. If I'm Cleveland Brown fans, I'm putting a paper bag over my head just going like, what the hell just happened again? That's just me.
So do you feel like quickly for you both. Of course, obviously you both had yours was a lot lower and yours was obviously higher. Do you think this was more, in your opinion, more like of a hit and miss for the Cleveland Browns?
Most definitely. I think they would have hit more on Sam Darnold and hit more on Bradley Chubb or Mika Fitzpatrick than Denzel Ward and Baker Mayfield. That's just my 2 cents for the distance.
Oh, I mean, he had Baker Mayfield going number 12 overall in his mock draft. I didn't even have him going in the first round, and mainly because I thought he was going to suffer from something similar to Aaron Rodgers, who fell to the 24th, 25th pick overall, or, Drew Brees. He was a second-round pick. It's not because they weren't first-round guys or high first-round guys. It's just, it's just how the chips fell. I was thinking that's how the draft was going to go this year. But I just like the... like I said, time will tell, and they can run a very similar off. They don't have to change the offense when Mayfield goes in versus Tyrod Taylor.
That's actually going to be interesting, absolutely. When you have someone who's more of a dynamic quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, and then would you seem like it was like you would seem like they would slow it down, or how do you actually even see those two complementing each other?
Well, Tyrod Taylor is already NFL ready, and he has a playoff berth underneath his belt, and he does not turn the ball over. So that should help out Baker Mayfield well, but I still don't like the pick.
And Mayfield only had 6 picks last year versus 43 touchdowns. So he knows how to protect it too.
Cleveland Browns putting in work during this offseason. We know they also got a dynamic wide receiver, Pro Bowl and Mr. Landry also coming from the Miami Dolphins. It could be potentially in the future, maybe a team finally on the rise, maybe playoff conversations, maybe somewhere down the line. May not be this season, but we'll soon find out sooner rather than later. We're going to go from Cleveland, and we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Luke, I want to start with you. You gave them a C overall.
Yeah, their picks really remind me of basically the first team we covered tonight with the Buffalo Bills. Just a lot of depth right there. Terrell Edmonds, he can be a kid that plays right away for him. James Washington, second rounder out of Oklahoma State. He'll probably get his shot with I believe the receiver Martavius Bryant going to the Raiders
for a third round pick.
For a third round pick. So he should get a chance to prove himself. They got his teammate Mason Rudolph there. It's really not a laughing matter. I mean, you need a backup quarterback, and they don't really have a. I mean, who's the last good backup quarterback that the Steelers had? Michael Vick, maybe. Well, it wasn't Dennis Dixon.
No.
So I think Mason. He's what Foles did for Philadelphia. You want to go? That's a little extreme. Look at what Foles did for the Chiefs. Look what Chase Daniel did for the Chiefs in his time there. Consequently, look what Brody Croyle did for the Chiefs in his time. You need that good backup quarterback. I think Mason Rudolph can be that. Especially if Roethlisberger calls it quits 3 years from now, like he said he would after the playoff loss. I think 3 years on behind Roethlisberger could be very beneficial for Rudolph there. And then a lot of people like the Marcus Allen pick there in the 5th round. I'm surprised he fell to the 5th round. I think he was a day 2 guy versus a day 3. But they had a lot of depth there. Potential day 1 starters in their first 2 picks. Very, very, very similar to what the Bills did. Add depth, make the roster.
Mike, you gave them a grade higher. You actually gave them a B. Break down why you gave them a higher grade.
Well, before I break it down, I want to say I'm proud to see Ryan Shazier making progress of coming back from a serious career-ending injury. When he walked out on that stage in that pandemonium, you could do nothing but choke and cry because it's inspiring. He inspires other people that when you get knocked back down, don't give up and you come right back up and you punch in the mouth. So big ups to him. He's walking. He wants to play again. But in my personal feeling, after seeing something like that, I would just leave the game because football is a very violent sport. We all know that. They're trying to make it safe for the players. But to see him walk on his own without a cane or a walker is something special.
Life is a violent sport. Count your blessings. All of us. All of you.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I wanted to address that. Now I have some other things to address, but let's get to the draft picks. Safety Tremaine Edmonds. They could have went corner, but they need a center fielder and Edmonds, and he brings that to the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He can play in the box, but he's like an Aries / Troy Polamalu of the good Pittsburgh days when Troy was playing. He's a center fielder. He can make plays, and he's also very good tackler in space. So they got a good pick.
I compare him more to Ike Taylor or Ryan Clark myself. I think that's awfully high praise. He has that potential, but I think immediately, I think Clark and Taylor's is a immediate ceiling.
And when they get a wide receiver and James Washington, they had to address that need since they trade Martavis Bryant to the Raiders. And they also got a steal of Mason Rudolph, who fell to the 3rd round. He was day 1 potential. So they got him there. They addressed their offensive tackle. And they Marcus Allen, I'm just like, how did he fall this far? He was projected to go day 2 like he was saying. I'm shocked. Then they got a good fullback out of North Carolina State, a traditional fullback we hadn't seen in a while, and I got a defensive tackle out of Alabama. So I end up giving them a B grade because they addressed what their needs is and all that. I also like to take the time to recognize that in NFL history, especially in the draft, there have been the only ones that have done it, the Edmond brothers, 2 black draftees in the 1st round as siblings, and nobody recognized that but me. So I just like to say congratulations to them for being the first 2 African American athletes, siblings to be drafted in the 1st round in NFL, since we are going through hard times right now as society in America. So I just wanted to address that, and that's something big to me.
I like that. I wish Mason Rudolph would have gone to a team that didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, though.
Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't wait to see how these picks, I'm not gonna lie, how they pan out, especially under Mike Tomlin. These could be potential future, Pro Bowlers under Mike Tomlin. He's another great coach. Someone that you would put up there with the Bill Belichick's of the world, with the Andy Reid's of the world, and so forth. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in Pittsburgh in the future. We're going to take a break right there in Pittsburgh, and when we come back, we're going to go to the AFC South, where we're going to first discuss the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stay with us right here on Gameball NFL Endzone.
Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Gameball NFL Endzone. Once again, where the football season never ends, we're going to dive into the AFC South Division and talk about their picks in the 2018 NFL Draft, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mike, I want to start with you on this one. You gave the Jacksonville Jaguars an overall grade of an A. Explain to us why you gave them such a high grade.
They were good last year, and with this draft class being added to their roster, they got even better. I look at the defensive line, Taven Bryan out of Florida, who is a raw player. He only had 1 season under his belt due to a transfer from JUCO. I felt like if he could have stayed, he would have developed more as a player. Sometimes he could get suspect in double teams and one-on-one matches where he gets knocked down by the offensive lineman. But if you sit down, work with him, and show him how to do stuff a little bit better here and there, because he's got Calais Campbell and the crew that will work with him, he's going to be an NFL-ready, all-pro, all-type of player. He can also help them get over the hump against the Patriots and make a Super Bowl run. He also had DJ Shark out of LSU. They addressed that receiver need, a first-round talent falling to the 2nd round, because with Allen Robinson gone, and you also had Alan Hearns gone during free agency, so they had to address that need. And you got a first-round safety in the 3rd round, Ronnie Harris out of Alabama. I'm like, wow, this kid, he is a play-making machine. You also address offensive tackle in the 4th round. They only got better. They picked up a linebacker and a punter. They really picked up their players in the offseason, so they addressed it more in the draft, and they got better, especially on that defensive side. This defense is going to look scary. Jacksonville 2.0.
Luke, you gave them a high grade as well. You gave them a B.
Yeah, you could talk me into an A very easily on this too. Mike made a lot of good points there. I believe Mike and I both had him taking the receiver DJ Shark out of LSU in the first round. He was a second-round pick for him, so nailed it, kind of.
Right.
But again, he touched on Taven Bryan. He's just going to, I mean, you talk about a chameleon in a green room. He's just going to blend in with that defensive line, masterfully. Ronnie Harrison, little underdeveloped, I think. I mean, he's going to take a year or two to progress, but once that progression is made, he has all-pro potential in him. I like that sixth-round pick of Tanner Lee. A bit of a project. I think he could be that adequate, backup that a lot of NFL teams either have or wish they had. But I give him a B. You can twist him over to an A. They really nailed it. They did a very good job.
Overall, Jacksonville Jaguars, high grades, put in a lot of work during the offseason with this NFL draft. That's going to take us from Florida. We're going to move to the state of Texas, and we're going to talk about the Houston Texans. Kind of mid-range grades from both of you. Both of you guys actually gave them a C. Luke, I want to start with you first. Why did you give them a C?
It's just very similar to the Bills and the Steelers. I don't see a lot of guys that are going to make an impact for them immediately, but what Houston does have going for them, they're a very veteran squad. You look at both sides of the ball, that is a prime roster. But hard to believe they only won 4 games last year. When we did our picks, after the Super Bowl, I got Houston, assuming to stay healthy. I think they're in Atlanta playing the Super Bowl 53. I think that much of Deshaun Watson. I think you get J.J. Watt back. Back to the draft picks, though. Again, they did a really good job of adding depth there. A couple of flyers there in the late rounds. I like the linebacker to Stanford there, Peter Kambalai. I think he can actually pan out to be a pretty good linebacker for him. Kiki Corti could add a little bit of. At the end of the day, DeAndre Hopkins, he needs help. So I would have liked to see him maybe go receiver with their first pick, but when you look at the draft there, they didn't even get a pick in the 3rd round as well. So it's kind of hard to give any more to see when they don't have a 1st or 2nd round pick in there.
I agree with you. They could have traded up in the 2nd round maybe to get a legit receiver, because there were still some good players here and there to help DeAndre Hopkins out. Instead, they waited and they dressed safety with Justin Reed out of Stanford. He's a 1st-grade talent. So he's a good player, and he sees the field well. He makes open field tackles. He makes interceptions as well. Then they addressed their offensive line, which I thought they could have traded in the 2nd round to address that as well. With Will Hernandez from Texas El Paso was still there, but the Giants snatched him up, so they could have did that. But overall, the receiver, and what stood out to me with the 6th round pick as defensive end Wake Forest, Duke Ejiofor. He had 2nd, 3rd round grade on it. He fell to the 6th round. I don't know why. Maybe some off the field character issues. I don't know. It has been reported. But overall, just he nailed it. They didn't have it picked to the 3rd round, so I gave him a C.
The thing is, you can't really trade it to the 2nd round because it's making trades where you didn't have a 1st or 2nd round pick to begin with.
Well, they could have trade next year's 2nd round pick and got a good player, or 3rd round or something like that, to trade up and get a good quality player to help them. Their team is there to compete if they stay healthy. That's the part, especially on the defensive side, with J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless being out through the season. That kind of hurt them. So if they can stay healthy, they can potentially be a contender, but only time will tell, so I gave them a C.
C's on both sides of the table for the Houston Texans. We're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Two different grades in this one. Mike, I'm going to start with you. You actually gave the Indianapolis Colts an A.
Well, they have to hit all cylinders in this draft, and they did. When Bradley Chubb went to the Denver Broncos, and the Indianapolis Colts was like, okay, we have to regroup. What do we do? and they addressed an important need is to protect Andrew Luck by getting offensive line Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. He can play center. He can play guard. He's very versatile and he's very tall. He could possibly play tackle, but his natural position is guard. I mean, when I watch film on this dude, that is a old school offensive line. He is a blocking, pounding, put it down your throat on your butt machine. I'm like, he does not give up sacks, and this is why Notre Dame gets more picks in the offensive line than any other position, because they're old school NFL offensive line. They do the same thing and translates to the NFL, so that's a good enough high grade for me. You also addressed a linebacker need at South Carolina, Darius Leonard, who had a first-round grade on him. Defensive end, Kamudako Toure. I mean, this kid is a raw defensive end. If you work with him a little bit here and there, he can be a good player for the coach, especially that pass rusher they need, they lacked last season. And another defensive end, Ohio State, I'm like, just 1-2 punch there. He's a good player, and he was in that defensive line backfield with Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, and Sam Hubbard in those days of them being together, coached by defensive coordinator Greg Schiano. So you got him, and you can work with them too. They could be a deadly combination on the defensive side of the ball. And you also got a running back, Hines, who is at like a third round, like first round, not third round, but third down back, who also could play some first down as well. And you also got a wide receiver out of Northern Iowa. You hit it on another running back who can play special teams. So overall, this was a good draft for the coach. They needed to address positions, what do they need for it, so I give them an A.
Look, not so high on them. You actually gave them a C.
Well, I mean, it looks like they followed the same prototype of the draft position that the Bengals did. Very few skill position players. But, you know, as I mentioned, Cincinnati had that luxury. I don't think the Colts do. Love the pick of Nelson there. We'll see how Leonard and Toure pan out for him. I actually like Tyquan Lewis as a defensive end out of Ohio State for him there. But I would like to see him go more skill position. Which it seemed to do in the later rounds. Maybe hoping one of these flyers pan out for him. But I don't. Still don't know who's running the ball for him really. I don't know T.Y. Hilton. Still don't know who they're throwing to. We don't know the health status of Andrew Luck there. I mean, we'll see. It could pan out for him, but I don't. I do like how, aside from Quentin Nelson, who was the best lineman in this draft, I do like how they went a lot of defense after that. So if you're gonna go, non-skill position, you would have been on the defensive side of the ball.
So pretty much for you, you feel like they hit the hammer on the head basically, and
Exactly.
you kind of feel like they still have some questions that they still left unanswered.
Yeah, I mean they're basically at the prove me wrong.
All right, we'll see what the Indianapolis Colts do and how they'll fare with their draft picks moving on in the future. We're going to go from Indianapolis and we're going to go down to Tennessee and discuss the Titans. Similar grades between the both of you. Luke, I'll start with you first. You gave them a B.
Very similar to the New York Jets, who only had 6 picks. The Titans only had 4, but again, similar to the New York Jets. But they hit a couple of home runs there. Like the Rashad Evans pick out of Alabama. Really surprised he was still on the board at that point in the round for him. Equally surprised that Harold Landry fell to the second. I had Landry going number 18 overall to the Seahawks before they traded the pick, of course. And Mike, you had him going a little bit later in the first. I can't remember to who, but he was a first rounder for you as well.
I had him go to the Tennessee Titans.
To the Tennessee Titans in the first round. They got him in the second round there. So call you the second round king, I guess. But no, they. I mean, those 2 picks alone. I mean, given the fact they only have 4 picks in the overall. Got the cornerback out of Arizona, Dan Krusenshank. We'll see how he pans out for him. I also like the Luke Falk pick go out of Washington State for him there. The thing about that is that Tennessee doesn't run near the kind of offense that Washington State does. But yeah, much like the Tanner Lee pick earlier that we discussed, that's a very curious project that really has. If it doesn't work out, there's no downside. If it does work out, hallelujah.
Well, I think Tennessee hit all cylinders with the 4 picks. I gave them a B+ because they only had 4 picks and they made the most of it. But what's interesting is that they traded up in front of the Patriots and get their place, because a lot of people project Rashad Evans going to the Patriots, and they're surprised by trading up and getting Rashad Evans. And same thing in the second round. A lot of people had Harold Landry to go to the Patriots defensive end, and Tennessee once again traded up, beat up to the punch. So they got him there. And same thing with the sixth round. They didn't have to trade. They was basically there, and Luke Falk was there, and they got him. So it was just like, I'm going to get the Patriots picks and see what they're going to do about it. But let's see how it plays out. But overall, I like the linebacker. I like the defensive end. And the cornerback, we'll have to see. But I gave him a B+ overall for the 4 picks that they made most of.
So a B+ and a B respectively for the Tennessee Titans. And that's actually going to move us into the AFC West division, where we're going to discuss the Denver Broncos. Once again, similar grades between the both of you. Mike, you gave them an A-. Luke, you gave them an A. Mike, I want to start with you. Actually, why did you give them an A-?
Well, I felt like they should address the offensive line more than defense perspective. That's why I gave them an A-. If they would have addressed it, they would have got a higher grade. But how can you pass up on Bradley Chubb, one-of-a-kind defensive end? He reminds me of Khalil Mack and Von Miller mixed together. You could also throw little LT, Lawrence Taylor in there, also with the other grades like Reggie White and Bruce Smith and so on and so on. This kid is all natural. He's like one of a kind every other draft defensive end. Von Miller and Khalil Mack was the last one. So he kind of reminds me of both. He's good, very good with the hands. He gets off the ball so clean. The quarterback knows what hit him. Same thing with the offensive line. He just blah, blah, blah. Gets off of blocks very good. And the second round, I thought they could address the offensive line, but they went with receiver instead. That's why I kind of knocked them a little bit, which is a good receiver, but that offensive line has to be fixed for them to be successful. They do have a championship defense, but what about that offense? Every defense needs a good offense. So that offensive line. And they also got a running back out of Oregon, a good cornerback who can possibly replace Keith Jalid, and Isaac Yalom out of Boston College. Linebacker Josie Jewell, who does not a lot of people know about, out of Iowa. He's maybe a little bit undersized, but this kid can ball. He's a sideline tackling machine. He can also make plays in the passing game. They got Deshaun Hamilton, wide receiver. He had a second round potential, but fell in the 4th round. He is a play-making machine. He gets good separation. He can catch the ball well. For 6'1", he plays like 6'5". He can go and catch the ball. And I love his game. And for the tight end of Wisconsin, if he would have stayed healthy, if his time there, his round grade would have been higher in the 2nd or 3rd round range, but he fell in the 6th round. 5th round. That's a steal for the Denver Broncos. They did address the offensive line in the 6th round, but I felt like if they would address in the 1st and 2nd round, the grade would have been higher. But you can't pass on Bradley Chubb. I mean, it's going to be a nasty combination. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb together. Who's going to block who?
Don't forget about Shane Ray, too.
Exactly. He's still under his 1-year contract. I don't know if Denver exercised it yet or not. We'll have to see. But overall, you can't pass up on Bradley Chubb.
Luke, now you gave the Broncos just a shade higher grade than you just gave them a solid A.
Bradley Chubb, he was many had him that rated as the number 1 prospect in the draft this year. I stand by him. I still think the Browns should take him number 1 overall. And then Mike and I, we both had Courtland Sutton going to the Cowboys, number 19 overall. Very, very, very two similar situations there. On the one hand, there's basically 2 ways to go about doing a draft in any sport really. You can either draft for need, or you can go for first best player available. You take a look at the Broncos draft pick right here, Bradley Chubb. He was the best player available. Courtland Sutton, at least at the time, he was the best at least wide receiver available. They just released C.J. Anderson. Royce Freeman, he's a very comparable back to C.J. Anderson. Not an every down back. Doesn't necessarily have to be, though. He just has to really exercise his opportunities. He'll be a 3rd down guy, maybe a special teams guy as well. But that's right in his wheelhouse, though, too. Then you get to the fourth, fifth rounds, whatever else. You kind of got some guys in there that you're. Day 3 of the draft, pretty much every team's going best player available at that point anyway. It's kind of a crapshoot. But you just look at those top 3 or 4. He touched on the defensive back out of Boston College, Isaac Yiadom. Like that pick as well. I just think they really did a lot to help themselves. They might have been one of the, if it's possible to say, one of the best 5-11 teams of all time last year. They're the Super Bowl. The defense is still Super Bowl good. Case Keenum at quarterback in there. The 2 things they couldn't do last year: they couldn't convert third down, they couldn't protect the ball. They get into third and short. Just by nature, the third down conversion will increase. Protect the ball. That defense is still Super Bowl good, or at least playoff good.
2 high grades, A- and A respectively for the Denver Broncos. Obviously, picking up some huge draft picks on their board. That takes us to a division rival of the Denver Broncos, and that takes us to the Kansas City Chiefs, where both of you weren't so high on their draft picks. Mike, you gave them a C-. Actually, break down for us why you gave them such a low grade.
Well, they didn't have a first-round pick since they traded up the previous track to take Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to knock them there. But what I am going to knock them is they could have addressed the cornerback spot, because there was still some good corners who was first-round grades on, and they just passed them on. Oliver was still there. And you also have other good players as well at the cornerback spot. You also had Josh Jackson, who was a first-round grade, fell into the second round. I mean, you have to address that spot because you traded your best cornerback to the Los Angeles Rams and you didn't replace that. So that's kind of a knock on them. You went defensive end instead. Then you got defensive tackle for Florida State, who's also pretty good. You got a linebacker. You also have a safety from Texas A&M. You also drafted, and you got another cornerback. You got defensive tackle, but cornerback wasn't much needed for the Chiefs' defense since they traded Marcus Peters. So they could have got an Oliver kid out of Colorado, which they produced good cornerbacks in recent years in the NFL draft. Or you could have got Josh Jackson out of Iowa, who was projected to go to the first round but fell to the Packers. So that's my only knock, and that's why I gave them a C-, and they ain't really have much work with in the draft.
Nope. Gave them, once again, a shade of a higher pick. You still gave them a C. Why did you give them that?
6 picks. They went defense on every single one of them. This wasn't necessarily a draft that they had to knock out. Heard Andy Reid say about a week or so ago. He says he can put their team out there today. I mean, they're already ready to play. I mean, this is a team that's ready to go. And Andy Reid, he's one of the most offensive masterminds in the game. And like I said, 6 for 6 defensive picks right there. So he's obviously very confident in their offense. You talk about a team that's built to win now. Getting a C in the draft that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you're a veteran team like the Chiefs and it's stacked offensively, they added Sammy Watkins in the offseason there to pair up with Tyreek Hill. They still got the one of the league's top backs, Kareem Hunt, coming back in his second year. And I can't. A little off topic. If Pat Mahomes and or Deshaun Watson was in this year's draft class, would Baker Mayfield have gone number 1?
No.
I don't think so either. So that's a big get for them.
That's a hell no.
That's a huge get for the Texans too. Nailing it with Deshaun Watson with the number 12 pick. The fact that Deshaun Watson put a 12 last year, I still can't get over either. But back to the Chiefs here though. They could use some defensive help in the back end there. But they went heavy on the defensive line. I really like their linebacker to Clemson there. I mean, Clemson, their defense last year was just such a good defense they had last year. I mean, they have a lot of guys coming back. Clemson does, who's projected to go, top 5, top 10, top 15 in next year's draft. So that's a good get for him there. I like the safety out of Texas A&M too, Armani Watts. Dude's a hitter. He reminds me of the old. You guys remember Jerome Woods?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me. He just wants to blow stuff up. Love it. So the Chiefs, they just got 6 for 6 defensive picks. Can't argue with it.
So this was definitely. So do you feel like this was a draft that it wasn't necessarily crucial, but at the same time they addressed some needs that they did have on the defensive end?
Yeah, I thought they could address the corner in the second round because there was still some good corners who could have went in the first round there in the second round that fell.
They weren't one of the league leaders in sacks last year. I think their idea of getting their defensive back up was more pressure on the quarterback. Just devil's advocate.
Kansas City Chiefs addressing needs offensively. We already know what their. I'm pretty sure everybody out there already knows offensively.
Well, how about drafting Khalil McKenzie with their last pick in the 6th round there? Reggie McKenzie's son, Raiders GM. Little head game right there. I like it.
All right.
All right, Kansas City Chiefs. See what they put on the table when they get on that football field come September. Another division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. High grades from both of you. Luke, you gave them a solid A. Why'd you give them a high grade?
Los Angeles Chargers still doesn't sound right, but
right.
But seeing here only on Gameball NFL Endzone, yours truly with the number 17 overall pick of the 1st round, safety Florida State Derwin James to the Los Angeles Chargers. Once again called here and only here on Gameball NFL Endzone. So a little pat on the back for myself right there. No, our man Mike thought really highly of James. He had him going number 7 overall. He fell 10 picks below that. And they got a solid linebacker, Uena Nwasu out of USC there. Justin Jones gives them depth on the defensive line. I think him and the kid Bosa could really do some damage together.
And Ingram.
And Ingram as well. Thank you. Got Kaiser White, a state out of West Virginia. If nothing else, get some more depth. And that's really what the draft is all about. I mean, there's 2 things you want to do in the draft there. You want to address needs. You want to acquire depth. Scott Quisenberry, the offensive lineman at UCLA, gives them again more offensive depth. Dylan Cantrella, Texas Tech, nobody throws the ball quite like they do. Maybe Washington State, I guess, but no, he's no stranger to the ball getting chucked around there. I think Phillip Rivers would like seeing him open a little bit, and Justin Jackson, a solid running back out of Northwestern, who might be the next Earl Davis, later on draft pick at the running back position. Maybe not. We'll see.
I gave them an A+ all the way. I love what the Chargers did. They inflicted, they just stuck to their guns, and they drafted the best player available. They do need some help at the right tackle position, but you can't pass up on Derrick James, the safety out of Florida State. This dude can play all the position in the defensive backfield. He can play corner. He can play nickel. He can play slot. He can play strong. He can play free. If you really want to take it up a further, he can blitz in the linebacker spot. This dude is so versatile at the defensive back spot. It's just unreal. He is a one-of-a-kind player.
He's the Antoine Randall defense.
Exactly. The last player that was drafted out of Florida State that went to the San Diego Chargers was Antonio Cromartie. So he got some of that background in him. I'm like, this kid is a phenomenal player. One-of-a-kind safety that can be a Pro Bowl player. He could also be a Super Bowl champion if the Los Angeles Chargers play their cards right on defense. I mean, he's back there with Bosa, Ingram, all the veteran crew, and you add this kid, man, they're going to make some plays on the defensive side of the ball. I also like that linebacker out of USC. He can play some defensive end, but more likely he'd be like an inside or will linebacker. And I also like the Justin Jones pick out of North Carolina State defensive line. North Carolina State has produced a defensive line in recent years.
Mario Williams, amongst others.
Exactly. All their players on the defensive side of the ball was drafted in this year's draft. So that is a big plus for that program to produce a good talent at the defensive line spot. And the offensive line, the safety at West Virginia. Overall, Chargers get a A+.5 for this year's draft.
What I like about the Chargers here as well is you see they had 7 picks, 1 for each round. They didn't have to make any trades to move up or down or anything.
It just fell right on their lap, basically.
Los Angeles Rams are definitely like they're trying to build a Super Bowl contender. They already know what they look like offensively. Now you add in some more defensive talent as well.
Imagine this. If they would have won 2 more games of last season, imagine what they could have done in the playoffs.
I'm going to touch on that after we cover the Raiders.
All right, speaking of the Raiders, like Luke just said, once again, similar grades, not very high on their draft choices at all. Luke, I would like to start with you. You gave them a solid C.
I do like to pick Colton Miller there. Mike and I both had the Patriots taking him with the number 31 pick. He was off the board a little early there. Overall, I mean, top to bottom, not a bad draft for him. I would like to see him got a little bit more, on the offensive side of the ball there. As skill position wise, I like the Colton Miller pick number 1 though. P.J. Hall, defensive lineman out of Sam Houston State. I think they're basically hoping that he can relieve some of the double team pressure that Khalil Mack faces there. You got Brandon Parker out of North Carolina A&M. Seems like a bit of a project to me. Probably could have been there on day 3, maybe not. Some solid grade round picks there, but I like the Maurice Hurst pick out of Michigan. The real solid defensive line. So that gives us some more depth there as well. I really like the Azim Victor pick out for Washington there as well. I'm not really a stranger to watching Washington football for whatever reason, but that Azim Victor, to see that he went on day 3 he's a round 3 talent, if you ask me. So you could talk me into a B or at least a C plus on this, but again, basically, a C for me isn't a bad thing. You could talk me. Time will tell. They could certainly, when we do a redraft 3, 5, 7 years from now, it could be a B, it could be an A.
Well, I gave him a C plus. I thought they did okay in the draft. And a C plus is not bad. It's better than some grades.
Just means we weren't blown away.
Exactly. But the offensive tackle, yeah, they did address that need at that spot. But I feel like Tremaine Edmonds, that linebacker spot, they had to address defense. They was getting blown out the water last season on defense. They was furious going after the quarterback for a sack. They really stopped the run, and they gave up too many big plays in the passing game. So I felt like they really focused on defense as they should have, or otherwise it would have been a higher grade. They went P.J. Hall, defensive lineman at Sam Houston State. They addressed another offensive tackle, and the only 2 reasons why I gave them a C plus, because they got a first-round talent grade and Arden Key, defensive end out of LSU. If he didn't have characteristic issues, he would have been higher. And Maurice Hurst, defensive lineman out of Michigan, who had a first-round grade but fell far because of his heart condition and all that, and teams didn't really want to touch him at all. So that was his downfall. But I think
he's got Frank Clark potential, another Michigan guy.
Exactly. I think he can prove a lot of people wrong that his health is not a concern, because it is a high risk of his heart condition. But I feel like if he keeps his health right and plays at a high level, he'll prove a lot of people wrong. So that's why I gave him a C plus. If they would have hit the hammer off by drafting a linebacker, especially Tremaine Edmonds, who was still there in the early parts of the top 10 draft, this would have been a higher grade.
We'll see how they do next year. I want to. With the new coach in there, John Gruden, you almost have to give him. You play it safe. You give him a C, C plus. Let's see how Gruden does next year when he's back in the game and has another year under his belt. I'm really curious to see how the draft. I bet the draft picks look nothing like this next year when he has a little bit what he knows he's working with.
We'll see.
But you mentioned the Chargers, almost making the playoffs last year. I was wanting to ask you guys is who wins this division? I'm
going with the Los Angeles Chargers, because they still got a lot of players on the defensive side who's a playmaking machine. And also you added safety Derwin James to that pot. And you also got Phillip Rivers on that offensive side. And they could address the offensive line issues here and there. But if they play their cards right, it's all Los Angeles Chargers will winning the AFC West.
Yeah, you could really talk me into any one of these 4 teams. I think Denver's going to be right in there too. And they won 5 games last year, but they had a draft class for the ages, at least on paper anyway. I still think the Chiefs are going to win, for the first time in the franchise. This is 3 in a row for them. A fun fact about the Chiefs: they had never won back-to-back divisions until last year.
If Denver would address the offensive line spot, I would have put them in the conversation as winning, but they didn't address the offensive line. They should.
Raiders got John Gruden, healthy David Carr. They got Martavis Bryant in the trade there. It's all 4 teams can make a case for it. It's going to be a real fun division to watch.
Absolutely. I want to say actually Kansas City, if they can stay healthy, and that is on both sides of the football. If they can do so, they have a ton of weapons offensively. Of course, the jury's still going to be out for Patrick Mahomes and what type of quarterback is he going to be under Andy Reid. He's brought into a system that's tailor-made for him. He has a lot of weapons. Defensively, they've garnered some talent. if they can find a way to be healthy, I think they could.
My
they could take
concern
this
with the
division.
Chiefs is that can they win without scoring 30 points a game? They really struggled last year in that.
Exactly. Once they get big leads, then they blow big leads. We had seen a lot of that, and that's why they lost against the Tennessee Titans, because they had a big
The
lead.
Jets,
They
the Giants, the
blew.
Buffalo Bills. I mean, they just when they couldn't score, they couldn't win.
But do you think that also could have also played a part when they lacked that leadership defensively? We all know that Eric Berry went down in the first game against the New England Patriots, and just not having that veteran leadership to kind of rally your team together when it mattered in the fourth quarter. You think that also could have played a factor there?
And that definitely played a big factor in that, because he's a good cover guy. He also will line up in the box and stop the run as well. So that was a huge loss for him. But we'll see how he comes back from that Achilles tear and that injury.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the AFC Conference and their 2018 draft picks. Next week, come back and we're going to discuss the NFC Conference, and we'll see how those teams made the grade.
Social media, where you can follow us at Facebook, Gameball College Kickoff / Gameball NFL Endzone. Email, send us a fan mail, tell us your opinions here and there at gck.gnfle@gmail.com. Twitter, GCK_GNFLE. You can also follow your boy, all capitalized, at Gameball_Mike MYKE. You can always follow us on Instagram as well at GCK_GNFLE. You can also follow us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, help us grow, share the channel to your Facebook friends, whatever, at GCK.GNFLE TV. Our clothing line, copy your gear like this: hoodies, shirts, long sleeves. We also have workout short sleeve shirts as well, along with tank tops at tokendesigns, Topeka.com/Gameball. And your social media?
You can find me on Facebook under Marcus Jovel ENT Jenkins. Also find me on Twitter and Instagram as well under Jovel ENT.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Luke Hartnett. I'm on Twitter as Luke Hartnett 2.
And once again, that's going to do it for Gameball NFL Endzone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the support. And we'll see you next week right here.
Peace.